So you found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey there YouTube, the Dapper Dinosaur back again to finish off the discussion about the obtuse duo from Ontario, paid by CMI Canada to lie to Canadian Christians. Last time we had just started in on the Ice Age, and they said that there was only one Ice Age, that it was after the flood, and that it depended on hot oceans and cold land. Even though according to their own models, the Earth would be molten at this point, not in an Ice Age.
Cool summers prevent the snow from completely thawing,
which sure can raise the Earth's albedo if it's significant enough, which would then mean more radiation is reflected back out to space, meaning less of it heats the planet,
causing ice sheets to grow over many years to be several kilometers thick.
Yes.
I sure hope they're going to explain those cool summers, because that's part of causing the so-called Ice Age, and you need to explain that.
With all the tectonic activity during Noah's flood,
tectonic activity that, according to the creationists themselves, would have vaporized Earth's ocean twice over. Go on.
New ocean floors being made from the hot rock, this would have caused warm oceans at the end of the flood.
No, it would have caused the oceans to flash to steam, blanketing the planet in a cloud of heat-trapping water vapor, causing the planet to turn into a place where standing outside would be more like standing inside a furnace than standing on a glacier.
Volcanic dust and other aerosols from massive volcanic activity during the flood would have caused the sun's rays to bounce back, resulting in cold continents, even in the summertime.
Yeah, probably. But at this point, Earth would be radiating more heat from its own internal temperature than it was getting from the sun anyway. Essentially, creationist plate tectonics makes the Earth its own little mini-sun. That's fun, isn't it?
So there's the connection between the flood and the Ice Age.
Ah, very good. Okay. Meanwhile, evolutionary history has ice ages over billions of years.
I mean, the longest ice age was probably Snowball Earth, and that lasted about 10 million years. So I'm not sure what they mean by over billions of years. It sounds like they're saying the conclusion of science is that ice ages have lasted billions of years, but maybe that's not what they mean.
But the evidence really shows just one. There's good evidence for one.
Yeah.
Except for all those glacial deposits in Neoproterozoic rocks, which according to creationists are not post-flood, and many of them think they are pre-flood. You know, that's one of the main reasons Snowball Earth is pretty well supported.
Slow and gradual processes have problems explaining an ice age. If you slowly cool down the whole Earth, by the time everything's cold enough for an ice age in the summertime, the snow stays there in the summertime, most of it, the oceans would be too cool to produce the amount of precipitation needed.
It seems like we're forgetting that if you have a long time, a low amount of snowfall can accumulate. Let's look at a real-world example. Maybe you've heard of Antarctica, the world's largest desert. It receives about 166 millimeters of precipitation per year. If we compare that to, say, France, which on average gets about 500 to 1,000 millimeters, depending on the region, we can see why Antarctica is considered a desert. Yet the continent is basically covered in glaciers. How is this? Well, because a little bit of snow over a long time is a lot of snow.
So a global flood, once again, is the superior explanation for an ice age.
Meteorologist Michael Ord estimated it would have taken about 700 years for the oceans to cool down from about 30 degrees Celsius to today's average of 4 degrees.
Okay.
How long would it take to cool from 200 degrees Celsius to 4 degrees Celsius? Because that's the kind of thing we're looking at here. But even if we assume an initial temperature of 40 Celsius, or 104 Fahrenheit, that's enough to cause real problems. Most ocean life has a fairly narrow range of temperatures that they can survive. In fact, rises in global ocean temperatures much more modest than this level of heating are causing extinctions. So even if we pretend that catastrophic plate tectonics wouldn't just boil away the oceans and leave superheated steam, we are still in a situation where you're killing basically all ocean life. For one thing, hot water can't hold as much oxygen, so many organisms would simply drown if the ocean were that hot. Further, that would be an average. Right now, there is a range of about 20 degrees Celsius in ocean temperatures, so we would have 45-degree water in the tropics in this already far too generous model. That's 113 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to kill off all the coral in the tropics. And of course, this low oxygen environment would encourage toxin-producing anaerobic bacteria, causing blooms of these organisms that would make the water not just oxygen deficient, but downright deadly.
Now, he estimates the Ice Age reached its peak about 500 years after the flood, and then the ice sheets receded over the next 200 years.
So you need all that previously talked about proboscidea diversity by the time the Ice Age is in full swing. Man, those must be some really frisky, trunky boys.
Okay, but what about those kangaroos?
Almost there. This map shows the extent of the ice sheets at the peak of the Ice Age. The amount of evaporation needed to form those ice sheets would lower ocean levels by nearly 400 feet, enough for land bridges between the continents to be exposed.
The channels in the ocean between Australia and Indonesian islands are more than 12,000 feet deep. And you know what my source is? Google Earth. That's how easy this is to check. Land masses being close doesn't mean the water between them is shallow.
During the post-flood Ice Age, animals and people could have migrated all over the globe.
Okay, all right.
Well, that explains why there are so many mammal groups that are found in Europe, Asia, and the Americas altogether. But how come no ungulates or carnivorans made it to Australia? Why are the only native placental mammals in Australia bats? Creatures that could fly there. We know from the North American opossum that marsupials aren't fundamentally incapable of colonizing areas dominated by placental mammals. So why aren't there any marsupials in Asia?
Then, as the ice sheets melted and receded, ocean levels would rise again, making the land bridges disappear.
Exactly. By that time, there could have been plenty of animals living in places like Australia.
The challenge of biogeography to the flood isn't that animals live there at all. It's why we see the distribution of animals that we do, and why it correlates so well with the fossil record in Australia. Why are there fossil kangaroos, wombats, thylacines, platypuses, etc. in Australia, but nowhere else if they came from a supercontinent originally, and then only went to Australia after the flood? Why didn't any of them settle down elsewhere? Kangaroos in the form of the red-necked wallaby are doing pretty well in England, Scotland, Germany, and France, and one species of South American marsupial, the opossum, is now ubiquitous in North America. So it's not like they can't survive elsewhere. Further, why didn't a single felid go to Australia? Domesticated cats are running wild now that they have been introduced to Australia in modern times, and tigers live on the Indonesian islands, where the creationists say their imaginary land bridge was. Why no actual tigers in Australia, but instead we have the so-called marsupial lion, Thylacoleo? For that matter, why did no marsupial predators, like marsupial lions, Tasmanian tigers, or Tasmanian devils, the latter two of which used to live in the mainland Australia until humans got rid of them, ever make it to colonize Indonesia or Southeast Asia? See, none of this works in creationist terms.
Changing climate conditions may have caused some animals to thrive better in some environments better than others, which might explain why kangaroos appear to be native only to Australia. It's not because they evolved there, it's because they migrated there and then got surrounded by water.
Then why are there fossils there? In fact, why are there transitional fossils of marsupials at all? Why are they only found in South America, Antarctica, and Australia? And why the weird filtration by reproductive method in Australia? How does a land bridge separate out animals with pouches and that lack a true placenta? Why is there not a single shred of evidence of any of these animals living elsewhere?
Yeah, there's evidence that kangaroos used to live in other parts of the world, but it's been suggested that...
Like, seriously, I can't find even any creationist source purporting to have evidence of kangaroos outside of their current non-introduced range. Not a scrap. I'd be fascinated to find some source like that, but I haven't been able to after about an hour of searching.
See, even today in Australia, the kangaroo has no natural predator.
Yeah, but they did, though. Animals like Megalania, the thylacine, and Thylacoleo fed on kangaroos, and it wasn't until humans showed up that these animals were pushed to extinction, at least on the mainland. So what's the point of bringing up the relatively recent gaps in the Australian ecosystem?
So maybe elsewhere they just died out.
That's right, yeah.
No, it's not right, because kangaroos face predation their entire existence. Before humans, it was the aforementioned animals, and then it was humans. Why can they survive giant lizards and big toothy pouch cats, but wolves and tigers are just a bridge too far? And that still doesn't explain why the wolves and tigers didn't make it to Australia. You can't just say, well, no extant animal feeds on large kangaroos, so they must not be able to survive predation. That does not follow. You could say the same thing about the modern pronghorn, except they did evolve under threat of predation, specifically that of members of genus Myricynonyx, better known as the American cheetah, which were actually more closely related to mountain lions than the African cheetah, but either way were adapted to be hypercursorial.
Consider that if the flood produced the rock record, then
it would look entirely different.
It wasn't formed over millions of years, right?
Right.
You're wrong.
You're so wrong.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
Well, therefore, it can't be used as evidence for the millions of years for evolutionary history.
Yeah.
Except it can, though, because both deep time and a global flood would leave behind vastly different kinds of geological records. And we can check to see which kind we actually have. And guess what? We have the kind you get from deep time, and most emphatically do not have the kind of record you'd get from a global flood.
Yet geology is most often the go-to science that evolutionists use to prop up their version of history.
Yeah, because it conclusively demonstrates the great age of the Earth beyond any reasonable doubt. There is no debating this, which is why there is no scientific debate. There are just charlatans like these two, pretending that reality isn't what it is, to dupe gullible people into giving them money or believing in their version of Christianity under false pretenses.
Yeah, and if scientists find rocks there that they use for radiometric dating and that kind of thing, if the radiometric dating comes out to millions of years...
Which it does, and it does in ways we can cross-check for problems like contamination. And when we get uncontaminated samples, we get highly consistent dates from multiple techniques.
Well, instantly little red flags should go up and say, wait a minute, those rocks were formed during Noah's flood.
No, red flags should go up that your belief in Noah violates well-established physics and its uncontroversial application to geology.
About 4,400 years ago, so how come this dating method is giving these results?
Because there was no global flood.
It should make us question that dating method.
I mean, why question your unsubstantiated conclusions based on an idiosyncratic interpretation of a text compiled thousands of years ago? That would be crazy. It's not you who's wrong, it's reality that's wrong. Well, that's their last argument, so I hope you enjoyed this rather long series. If you did, please like the video. If you didn't, feel free to leave a dislike. Either way, comment below to give me your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and turn on all notifications so you're always alerted when there's more Dapper Dino content. I'm the Dapper Dinosaur. I just want to take a moment to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above: Bob Knob, Bent Hovind, Ian Chen, Chris Love, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, and Patrick Dennis. My patrons and channel members really help make this channel possible, and without them, this channel wouldn't exist. If you would like to support me, you can click the join link on this channel below this video, or you can click on my Patreon, link in the description, and pledge. On Patreon, there is an option for an annual subscription, which comes with a 10% discount. And joining the channel will give you access to my custom emojis. However, if a regular pledge isn't for you, I do have a merch store. And if monetarily helping out the channel isn't a thing you can do, every like, share, and comment really helps the channel.